Most people read Exodus 32 as a story of people who turned away from God, built a golden calf, and were punished. But what if none of that is what it's actually about? What if this chapter is revealing something happening within you? Something showing you how the mind creates false beliefs, how you begin to trust them, how they shape your behavior, and how awareness dismantles them. Because when symbolic language is misunderstood, a message about inner transformation becomes a story about external judgment. But today, we are going to decode it from within. And once you see it, you will recognize this pattern in your own life. So, let's begin. Exodus 32, verse 1. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Arise, make us gods which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we know not what has become of him. Moses here represents awareness, higher guidance, and clarity. The mount represents elevated consciousness or higher perception. Delayed to come down is temporary absence of felt clarity. People here represents thoughts, emotions, and inner faculties. Aaron represents expression, interpretation, and outer response. Make us gods mean create substitutes or false centers of authority. Egypt is the old identity, the conditioned state. What is this verse saying? It's saying, you've reached a place of higher awareness, demand, clarity, Moses. But now, there is a delay. Moses delayed to come down. This is saying, there are moments when clarity is not as strong, when awareness feels distant, and guidance is not immediately felt. Not because it's gone, but because you are in a transition phase. This is like you once felt clear. Now things feel uncertain. You don't feel that same certainty. This is normal in growth. The people gathered together. It's saying, your inner world becomes active and restless. Thoughts begin to rise. emotions begin to speak and uncertainty increases. When awareness is not actively felt, the mind begins to take over. Next line, onto Aaron. Aaron represents expression or interpretation. This is where your mind begins to explain things, where your reasoning tries to fill the gap. When clarity is quiet, interpretation becomes loud. Next line. Make us gods, we shall go before us. When awareness feels absent, the mind creates substitutes. These gods represent external validation, beliefs, systems, and assumption. Anything that replaces true awareness. Next line. We know not what has become of Moses. This is the feeling where you say, I don't feel clear anymore. Doubt enters. Uncertainty grows. And instead of waiting, the mind reacts. What this verse is revealing: when awareness is not actively felt, the mind will create something to replace it. Relationship example. You've been in a relationship. When it began, everything felt alive. Emotions were high. Attention was constant. You went out, talked all the time. Excitement was there. That's your mountaintop moment. Moses on the mount equals clarity, connection, and alignment. Then, as time went by, things normalized. The intensity reduced. Life became more stable. And that's where the shift happens. That's Moses delayed. What happens internally? Instead of understanding this is natural, things are stabilizing. The mind says, something is wrong. They've changed. Maybe they don't care anymore. Maybe there's someone else. This is the moment of make us gods. Next, the golden calf. What you create. You begin to create assumptions, stories, and emotional conclusions. And these become your new truth, even though nothing actually changed in reality. Why this happens? Because you were used to emotional highs, constant stimulation, and intensity. So when things become calm, stable, and consistent, Your mind interprets it as loss. The dangerous part: once those thoughts form, you start acting differently. You withdraw or overreact. You question everything. And you can create the very problem you feared. What the verse is showing, it's saying, when emotional intensity drops, the mind creates meaning to replace clarity. Not every change in feeling means something is wrong. Sometimes it means something is becoming real. The beginning of every relationship is often exciting, emotional, and intense. But real connection becomes calm, steady, and consistent. And if you don't understand that, you will replace peace with fear, because the mind prefers intensity over stability, prefers drama over stillness. But awareness sees nothing is wrong. It's just evolving. And when you understand that, you stop creating golden calves in your relationships. In career, at the beginning, you are excited. You are learning fast. Things feel new. Progress feels visible. That's your mountain experience. Then growth slows. Results aren't immediate. Things become repetitive. It feels less exciting. That's Moses delayed. What the mind does, instead of understanding this is the process, this is where consistency builds. The mind says, this isn't working. I'm not progressing. Maybe I chose the wrong path. Others are doing better than me. This is make us gods. The golden calf in career. You create comparison, fear-based decisions, quick alternatives like let me switch careers, doubt as your guide. You replace process with panic. What happens next? You become inconsistent. You stop trusting your path. You abandon things too early. Not because it wasn't working, but because you misread the silence. The truth: growth is loud at the beginning, but quiet in the stage where it actually forms. In religion, at the beginning, everything feels alive. Revelations come easily. You feel deeply connected. Understanding flows. That's your mountain moment. Then, the emotional intensity fades. You don't feel it the same way. Things feel quieter. That is Moses delayed. What the mind does. Instead of understanding this is deeper integration, the mind says, I've lost it. God is distant. Something is wrong. I need something external again. That is make us gods. The golden calf in religion. You begin to depend on external validation again. You chase emotional highs. You cling to rigid systems. You look for something to feel instead of something to be. You replace inner awareness with outer structure. What happens next? Fear returns. Confusion increases. Dependency grows. Not because truth left, but because you replaced it. The truth. The absence of emotional intensity is not the absence of truth. It is the beginning of maturity. In relationships, in career, in spirituality, there will always be a moment where the feeling fades. The noise reduces. Things become still. And in that stillness, you have two choices. Trust the process or create a golden calf. One leads to death. The other leads back to illusion. And once you see this pattern, you will catch it every time. Next verse. Exodus 32, verse 2. And Aaron said unto them, break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. Aaron represents the interpreting mind, which is logic, explanation, and meaning making. Gold represents value, importance, what you consider true or meaningful. Ears represents reception, what you listen to, what you accept. Golden earrings represent what you've heard, absorbed, and valued. These are beliefs and experiences. Wives, sons, daughters, all represents the aspects of you, all aspects of you. Your emotions, actions, and future expressions. Bring them unto me. It means give your experiences to the mind to interpret. When clarity, Moses, feels absent, the mind, Aaron, steps in. But here is the key. It doesn't create from nothing. It uses what you've already collected. Next line, golden earrings. Earrings are in the ears. This represents everything you've heard and accepted. Past experiences, advice from others, societal beliefs, childhood conditioning, and things people said to you. And notice, the earrings are gold, meaning you valued them. You believed this must be true. This is how things work. Next, from your wives, sons and daughters. This means from every part of you. Wives represent your emotions. The feminine always represents your emotions or intuition. So Eve, I have a teaching on Genesis 1, Genesis 2, and I'll be doing one on Genesis 3. So Adam and Eve are not literal. Adam is the choosing part of you, and Eve represents your emotions. They are not literal beings. So wives represent your emotions. Sons represent your actions. Daughters represent your future expressions. Because daughters is what continues a generation. So daughters represents your future expressions. Nothing is excluded. Next line. Bring them unto me. The mind says, give me everything you've heard, and I will form a conclusion from it. Relationship example. You've heard things like, men always cheat. Women are not reliable. Women lose interest over time. If they change, it means they don't care. And you stored those as gold. Now, when things slow down in your relationship, the mind takes those beliefs and says, see, this is happening to you. And you create a false reality. Career example. You've heard, it's hard to succeed. Only certain people make it. The job market is bad. You stored those as truth. Now, when progress slows, the mind uses them. It says, this isn't going to work, and you limit yourself. In religion, you've heard, God punishes. You are not worthy. You are a sinner. You must struggle to be accepted. You stored those as truth. Now, when you don't feel connected, the mind uses them. God is distant and fear returns. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals the false beliefs you create are built from what you have accepted without awareness. Be mindful of what you listen to, because your mind will eventually build from it. Nothing the mind creates is completely new. It is built from what you heard, what you believed, and what you valued. And in moments of uncertainty, it gathers those pieces and forms a reality. But here's the power. If it was built from what you accepted, it can be dismantled by what you now see. And that is where awareness takes back control. Verse 3. And all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them unto Aaron. All the people represents all parts of you, your thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Broke off means willing release, intentional participation. Golden earrings represents valued beliefs, what you've accepted as truth. Brought them unto Aaron means handing them to the mind to interpret and build from. In the previous verse, the mind asked for material. Now, you give it willingly. Next line, all the people. This is not partial. It's not just one thought. It's your entire inner system cooperating. This is where your emotions agree. Your thoughts align. Your reactions follow. Everything joins in. Next, broke off. This is intentional. No one forced them. They chose to take what they valued, remove it, and give it over. This shows how easily we detach from awareness and attach to assumptions. Next, earrings in their ears. Again, what you'll be hearing and believing. But now, it's no longer just stored. It's been activated. Brought them unto Aaron. This is the key moment. You take your past experiences, your beliefs, and your fears, and you say to the mind, interpret this for me. And the mind does exactly that. Relationship example. You start noticing less texting, less going out, less intensity. Instead of staying present, you gather your past beliefs. People lose interest. This always happens, and you hand it to your mind. Then the mind says, they don't care anymore, and you believe it. Career example. You experience slow progress, delayed results, and instead of trusting the process, you gather success is hard. Maybe I'm not good enough. You give it to your mind, and the mind says, this isn't going to work, and you act on it. Religion example. You feel less emotional connection, less intensity. Instead of staying grounded, you gather. God feels distant. I've lost something. You give it to your mind, and the mind says you are disconnected, and fear returns. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals the mind can only build false realities from what you willingly give it. The mind doesn't control you. It builds from what you hand to it. There is a moment before every false belief forms where you gather your past, your fears, your assumptions, and you bring them forward. That moment is where awareness can step in. Because once you give it to the mind, it will create something from it. But if you pause and don't hand it over, nothing false can be built. And that is where your power is. Verse 4. And he received them from their hand and fashioned it with an engraving tool, after he had made it a molten calf, and said, These are thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Received them from their hand. It means the mind accepts what you give it. Fashion it means shapes, organizes, interprets. Engraving tool is detailed thinking, analysis, and mental reinforcement. Molten calf is a solidified belief system, false center of trust. They said means agreement or internal consensus. These are thy gods means you now believe and rely on it, which brought you out of Egypt. This is misattributing your growth to the wrong source. This is the full process. You give the mind your beliefs, your earrings. The mind shapes them, fashioned with a tool. It becomes something solid, molten calf. You agree with it. These are your gods. Fashioned with an engraving tool. This is deep. The mind doesn't just think. It refines the story. It adds details. It connects dots. It strengthens the narrative until it feels convincing. The molten calf. Why a calf? Because it represents something visible, something tangible and easy to believe. This is a simplified, concrete version of reality. Even if it's not true, it feels real. Next, they said, now comes agreement. This is the moment you say, yes, this must be it. This is where your thoughts agree. Your emotions agree. Your perception aligns, and it becomes your reality. Which brought you out of Egypt. This is the most powerful part. They misattribute their transformation. Instead of recognizing awareness, truth, and clarity, they give credit to the false belief. Relationship example. You notice changes. You think they are distant. Something is wrong. The mind builds it. It connects small actions and creates a full story. Then you say, I know something is going on. And now that belief controls how you act. Career example. You experience slow progress. The mind builds. This isn't working. I'm not succeeding. Then you say, this path is wrong. And you quit. You change direction or lose consistency. Religion example. You feel less emotional connection. The mind builds. God is distant. I've lost it. Then you say, something is wrong with me. And you go back to fear. You depend on external systems. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals a false belief becomes powerful the moment you agree with it. The mind doesn't just create stories. It creates realities you begin to live by. It didn't start as truth. It started as a thought, a feeling, a moment of uncertainty. Then it was shaped, refined, and reinforced until one day you said, this must be true. And in that moment, you gave it power. But here is the freedom. What was created can be uncreated. Because the same awareness that sees truth can also see illusion. And once you see it, it can no longer hold you. Verse 5. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. Aaron saw it. The mind recognizing the belief it created. Build an altar means establishes it as something to honor, prioritize, and act on. Before it means centering life around that belief. Proclamation is declaring it as truth. Feast to the Lord is mislabeling illusion as truth or divine or right. This is the next stage where belief becomes behavior. He built an altar before it. An altar is a place of focus, attention, and devotion. This means you begin to act from the belief. You prioritize it. You give it energy. You organize your actions around it, and it becomes your reference point. Next, Aaron made proclamation. Now, it's no longer internal only. It becomes declared truth. You say things like, I just know this is how it is. This always happens. That's just reality. The belief is now spoken and reinforced. Next, a feast to the Lord. This is the most subtle part. They take something false and label it as truth. This is what happens when illusion feels convincing. You begin to justify it, defend it, and live by it, believing it is right. Relationship example. You created the belief they don't care anymore. Now, you withdraw. You act cold. You test them. And you justify it. I'm just protecting myself. That's the altar. Career example. You created the belief this isn't working. Now, you lose consistency. You stop putting in effort. You quit too early. And you say, I'm just being realistic. That's the altar. Religion example. You created the belief God is distant. Now you operate in fear. You depend on external systems. You lose inner trust. And you say, this is how it works. That's the altar. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals a false belief becomes dangerous when you begin to live by it and call it truth. Not everything you act on is truth. Sometimes it is a belief you never questioned. It started as a thought, then became a belief. Now it becomes your behavior. And the most subtle part is this: you don't just live by it, you justify it, you defend it, you call it right. And that is how illusion becomes your reality. But awareness, once it returns, will expose it all. Verse 6. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Rose up early means priority, urgency, automatic response. Burnt offerings represent total commitment, giving yourself fully to it. Peace offerings means justifying it, feeling comfortable with it. Eat and drink is internalizing, absorbing it as your reality. Rose up to play means acting it out, expressing it outwardly. This is the final stage of the pattern. Belief becomes behavior. Behavior becomes identity expression. Next, they rose up early. This shows it becomes automatic. You don't question it. You don't pause. You don't reflect. It becomes your default mode. Offered burnt offerings. Burnt offerings represent total surrender. You give your attention, your energy, and your focus completely to the belief. Next is peace offerings. This is where you make it feel okay. You justify it. This makes sense. I'm right to feel this way. You become comfortable with it. They sat down to eat and drink. This is internalization. You begin to believe it fully. Think from it and feel from it. It becomes your inner reality. Rose up to play. Now it shows externally. You act differently. You respond based on it. You express it in your behavior, and it becomes visible in your life. Relationship example. You believe they don't care anymore. Then you withdraw. You act distant. You stop communicating. You justify it. I'm protecting myself. And now the relationship changes. Career example. You believe this isn't working. Then you lose consistency. You stop putting effort. You disengage. You justify it. I'm being realistic. And now your progress stops. Religion example. You believe God is distant. Then you operate in fear. You depend externally. You lose inner trust. You justify it. That's how it works. And now your experience reflects it. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals what you believe, you eventually live out. Your life is not just shaped by what you do, but by what you believe is true. It didn't start with behavior. It started with a thought, then became a belief, then became your actions, and eventually your reality. And that's why awareness is everything. Because if you catch it early, you stop it before it becomes your life. And if you don't, you will live out something you never intended to create. That is the verse that says, dash the little ones against the stone. It's not talking about violence. Dash the little ones against the stone means catch it early. Stop it before it becomes your life. Little ones represent emerging thoughts. Stone represents rigid truth. That's why Paul calls Christ the chief cornerstone. So catch it early. Stop it before it becomes your life. Dash the little ones against the stone. Because if you don't, you will live out something you never intended to create. Verse 7. And the Lord said unto Moses, go, get thee down, for thy people which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. The Lord said, this is truth or higher awareness revealing reality. Moses is your conscious awareness. Go, get thee down means bring awareness back into the situation. Thy people represent your thoughts, your emotions, and inner faculties. Brought out of Egypt means freed from old identity or patterns. Corrupted themselves means distorted, misaligned, altered from truth. Up to now, the mind created a belief, the golden calf. You agreed with it. You lived it out. Now, Moses' awareness returns. Go, get thee down. This is important. Awareness, Moses was at a higher level, the mount. Now, it must come back into the situation. This means you become conscious again. You step out of autopilot. You begin to observe what's happening. You come back to yourself. Next line, thy people. Notice this, not someone else. Your own inner system. This is about your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions. Awareness sees what you created internally, which thou broughtest out of Egypt. You were once free, once clear, once aligned, but now you've drifted. Not because you were forced, but because you lost awareness for a moment. Have corrupted themselves. This is powerful. Not they were corrupted by something external, but they corrupted themselves. This means distortion came from within. Misinterpretation happened internally. The false belief was created by the mind. No external force did this. Relationship example. You were clear, grounded, aligned. Then you created assumptions and you acted from fear. Now, awareness, Moses returns and says, wait, this wasn't real. You see how you distorted it. Career example. You were confident, moving forward. Then you created doubt. You slowed down. Now awareness returns. You say, I let my thinking distort the process. Religion example. You were connected. You were clear. Then you replaced awareness with fear. You depended on external systems. Now awareness sees, I moved away from truth. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals distortion does not come from outside. It is created when awareness is absent. You don't lose truth. You momentarily lose awareness of it. You didn't become something else. You didn't lose who you are. You simply moved away from awareness and created something in its place. And now, awareness returns, not to condemn you, but to show you clearly, this is not what is real. And the moment you see that, everything begins to shift. Verse 8. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molten calf and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, These are thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Turned aside quickly means rapid shift from clarity to distortion. The way represents alignment, path of truth, awareness. Commanded is inner knowing, clarity, truth already revealed. Made themselves is self-created belief, not external. Molten calf is solidified false reality. Worshipped it means gave it authority, priority, and trust. Sacrificed unto it means invested energy, acted on it. These are thy gods means full agreement with the illusion. This is the full recap. And notice the key word, quickly. Turned aside quickly. This is real. You don't slowly drift. It happens fast. One moment you are clear. You are grounded. The next moment, a thought appears. You entertain it. It grows. And suddenly, you are in a completely different state. Next line, out of the way. The way is alignment with truth. You didn't lose truth. You stepped out of alignment with it. They made themselves. This is repeated again for emphasis. You created it. The assumption, the story, and the interpretation, it came from within. The molten calf. Now it becomes your authority. You begin to trust it, believe it, and act from it, even though it's not real. Sacrifice thereunto. This means you invest in it. Your time, your energy, your attention, you give yourself to it. These are thy gods. This is full agreement. The illusion becomes your truth. Relationship example. You go from everything is fine to something is wrong. Very quickly, you assume, you interpret, you believe, then you act distant. You question everything. You create tension, all from one unchecked thought. Career example. You go from I'm progressing to this isn't working. Quickly, doubt grows. Confidence drops. Action slows, and your results reflect it. Religion example. You go from I understand to I've lost it. Quickly, fear returns. Confusion rises. Dependence increases, and you move away from clarity. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals it doesn't take time to lose alignment. It only takes one unchecked thought. Awareness doesn't drift slowly. It is either present or it isn't. You don't need many thoughts. You don't need many doubts. Just one entertained, believed, followed. And you can move from clarity into illusion. But here's the power. The same way it happens quickly, you can return quickly. Because awareness is never far. It's just a matter of seeing again. And the moment you see, the illusion loses its power. Verse 9. And the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen these people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. I have seen, truth fully perceives what's happening. These people represent your inner system, your thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Stiff-necked means rigid, resistant, unwilling to turn or adjust. After the belief is created, the mind agrees with it and behavior follows it. Then something happens internally. It becomes rigid. Stiff-necked. This is a powerful image. A stiff neck cannot turn, adjust, or look another direction. Symbolically, the mind becomes fixed. It won't reconsider. It won't question. It won't see differently, even when evidence says otherwise. What this means internally: once a belief is formed, the mind begins to defend it. You notice, you justify it, you protect it, you resist anything that challenges it. Not because it's true, but because it feels familiar and certain. Why this happens? Because the mind prefers certainty over truth, familiarity over clarity, being right over being aware, so it locks in. Relationship example: you believe they don't care anymore. Then they do something kind. They show effort. But your mind says they are just pretending. That's stiffness. You refuse to see differently. Career example: you believe this isn't working, even when progress is happening. When opportunities appear, your mind says it's not enough, and you stay stuck in that belief. Religion example: you believe God is distant, even when clarity comes. Understanding increases. Your mind says, no, something is still wrong. You resist truth. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals the most difficult part is not the false belief. It is the resistance to letting it go. The mind doesn't just create beliefs, it clings to them. Once a belief settles in, it doesn't just sit quietly, it holds on. It says, this is right. This is real. Don't question this. Even when awareness begins to return, It resists. But here is the truth. What is rigid is not truth. Because truth is not afraid of being seen again. And the moment you soften, the grip begins to loosen. And that is how freedom begins. Verse 10. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. Let me alone means allow truth to operate without interference. Wrath is intensity of exposure, not anger. This is truth confronting distortion. Wax hot means heightened awareness, strong illumination. Consume them means dissolve, remove, bring an end to false patterns. Make of thee a great nation means rebuild from true awareness. After the false belief is formed, after the mind becomes rigid, which is stiff-necked, truth now moves to expose and dissolve it. Let me alone. It means don't interfere with truth. When awareness returns, don't justify the belief. Don't defend it. Don't hold onto it. Just let truth reveal it. Next, my wrath may wax hot. This is not emotional anger. It is intense clarity. The kind where everything becomes obvious, where illusion is fully exposed and you can no longer pretend. It can feel uncomfortable because it's revealing everything at once. Next line, consume them. This is the solution, not punishment, but removal. This is where the belief collapses, the illusion fades, and the distortion cannot remain because it has been seen clearly. Next line, I will make of thee a great nation. After the false system is removed, something new emerges. Clarity, truth, and alignment. A new way of thinking built on awareness. Relationship example. You believed they don't care anymore. Then awareness returns and shows you misinterpreted. You reacted from fear. It feels intense. You say, wow, I really created that. That belief dissolves. And now you respond from clarity. Career example. You believed this isn't working. Then awareness shows you were still progressing. You lost patience. That belief collapses. And now you move with confidence again. Religion example. You believed God is distant. Then awareness reveals nothing was missing. It was your perception. That belief dissolves. And now connection feels natural again. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals Truth doesn't fight illusion. It exposes it until it can no longer exist. That's what Revelation calls the fire that doesn't quench. It's not torture. Fire represents truth, refinement, transformation. What does scripture say? Our God is a consuming fire. It's not about torture. Truth doesn't fight illusion. It exposes it until it can no longer exist. What feels like distraction is often the removal of what was never true. When awareness returns, it doesn't argue, it reveals. And when it reveals, everything falls, begins to fall. It may feel intense, uncomfortable, overwhelming, but that intensity is not against you. It is for you. Because it is clearing what was never meant to stay. And what remains is not something new. It is what was always true. This is what it means. Those whose name were not found written in the Lamb's book of life were cast into the lake of fire. Not people. Not people. It is clearing what was never meant to stay. And what remains is your true self. What was always true. Verse 11. And Moses besought the Lord his God and said, Lord, why doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, whom thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt, with great power and with a mighty hand? Moses besought means awareness engaging, not passive. Lord God represents truth, higher awareness, ultimate reality. Why wrath is questioning the intensity of exposure. Thy people represents your inner faculties, your thoughts and emotions. Brought out of Egypt means already transformed, already awakened. Great power and mighty hand represents the strength of truth that brought change. In the previous verse, truth moved to fully expose and dissolve illusion. Now awareness steps in and says, wait, let's look at this properly. Moses besought the Lord. This is powerful. Awareness is not overwhelmed, reactive, or harsh. It is present and reflective. Instead of allowing intensity to overwhelm and everything to collapse at once, awareness engages with truth. Why does thy wrath wax hot? This is not questioning truth itself. It is questioning the intensity of the process. It's like saying, does this need to be so harsh? Is there a more balanced way to see this? What this represents. This is the moment where you don't condemn yourself. You don't say, I messed everything up. I ruined this. Instead, you say, let me understand this clearly. Next line, thy people which thou broughtest out of Egypt. This is key. Awareness reminds truth. These are not lost. They've already come out of Egypt. Meaning, you've already grown. You've already changed. You've already awakened. This was just a momentary lapse, not your identity. Next, with great power and mighty hand. This is a reminder. Transformation already happened. You are not starting from scratch. You are not completely lost. You've already come far. Relationship example. You realize I misinterpreted. Instead of saying I ruined everything, you say, let me understand what happened. You acknowledge you've grown. You've changed. This was just a moment. Career example. You realize I doubted myself unnecessarily. Instead of quitting or condemning yourself, you say, I've made progress. Let me realign. Religion example. You realize I moved into fear again. Instead of feeling lost or thinking you failed, you say, I've already seen truth. Let me return to it. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals awareness doesn't condemn the mistake. It puts it into perspective. Growth is not undone by a moment of misalignment. Yes, you may drift. You may misinterpret. You may create something that isn't true. But awareness, when it returns, does not destroy you. It reminds you you've already come out. You've already grown. This is not who you are. And in that reminder, you stabilize. You don't collapse, you realign. And that is the power of awareness. Verse 12. Why should the Egyptians speak and say, for mischief did he bring them out, to slay them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from thy fierce wrath and repent of this evil against thy people. Egyptians represent old identity, past conditioning, former mindset. Speak and say represents narrative, interpretation, meaning assigned. Brought them out is transformation, awakening, growth. To destroy them is misinterpreting the process as harm. Mountains represent higher awareness or elevated states. Consume them is total collapse, misunderstood as distraction. Turn from wrath means shift perspective, soften intensity. Repent means change perception, reframe understanding. Why should the Egyptians speak? Awareness is now asking, how is this being interpreted? Egypt represents your old way of thinking, past conditioning, old beliefs, former identity. And those old patterns will say, see, this isn't good. This path is dangerous. You were better off before. Next line, he brought them out to destroy them. This is misinterpretation. The process of exposing illusion and dissolving false beliefs can feel intense. And the mind can say, this is too much. Something is wrong. It mistakes transformation for distraction. To slay them in the mountains. The mountains equals higher awareness. So this is saying, this higher understanding is harming me. But in reality, it is revealing truth. Turn from thy wrath, repent. Repent here means change perception. Awareness is saying, let's not interpret this as distraction. Let's see it correctly. What this represents internally. This is the moment where you don't misinterpret your growth. You don't say, this is too hard. Something is wrong with me. Instead, you say, this is part of the process. Relationship example. You realize I created a false story. It feels intense. You could say this relationship is falling apart. But awareness reframes. No, I just misunderstood something. That changes everything. Career example. You face challenges, slow progress. You could say this path is failing, but awareness reframes. This is growth, not failure. Religion example. You feel less emotional intensity, deeper internal shifts. You could say, I've lost connection, but awareness reframes. This is deeper alignment, not loss. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals the process of transformation can be misunderstood if you interpret it through your old mindset. Not everything that feels intense is harmful. Sometimes it is clarity revealing what was hidden. When awareness begins to expose things, it can feel like something is breaking, something is ending, something is being lost. And the old mind will say, this is wrong. But awareness gently reminds you, this is not distraction. This is transformation. And the moment you see it that way, fear dissolves, clarity returns, and you move forward with understanding. Because what you thought was harm was actually healing in disguise. Verse 13. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants to whom thou swarest by thy own self, and said unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of will I give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. Remember means bring back into awareness. Recall what is true. Abraham, Isaac, and Israel are stages of inner identity and alignment. Servants represent aspects aligned with truth. Sworest by thyself means truth is self-established and changing. Multiply your seed means expansion of awareness, growth of truth. That's what Jesus meant by, in my Father's house are many mansions. Expansion of awareness. Because ask yourself, how big is a mansion and how big is a house? So how can a mansion fit in a house? So Jesus is speaking symbolically. What does Paul call you? He calls you the temple of God. Jesus calls you the Father's house. So multiply your seed means expansion of awareness or growth of truth. Stars of heaven represents limitless potential or clarity or illumination. Land means state of being, consciousness, identity. Inherit forever means permanent truth, not temporary. After distortion, misinterpretation, and intensity, awareness does something powerful. It remembers. Remember, this is not memory of the past. It is reconnection to truth. Instead of focusing on the mistake, the illusion, and the confusion, awareness says, what do I know to be true? Abraham, Isaac, and Israel represent a progression. Abraham represents awakening, the initial awareness. Isaac represents established identity, inner stability. Israel represents fully aligned consciousness. This is reminding you, you have already progressed. Soarest by thy own self. This is deep. It's saying truth is not based on feelings, circumstances, or temporary states. It is self-established, meaning what is true remains true. Next line, multiply your seed as the stars. This is expansion. Your awareness grows, expands, and becomes clearer, even after moments of misalignment. They shall inherit it forever. This is powerful reassurance. It means truth is not temporary. You don't lose it. You don't start over. You don't go backwards. It is yours permanently. Relationship example. You had clarity before. You misunderstood something briefly. Now, instead of saying everything is ruined, you remember, I've grown. I understand. I can realign. Career example. You made progress. Then you doubted. Instead of quitting, you remember, I've built something. I know what I'm doing. Religion example. You had deep understanding. Then you felt disconnected. Instead of fear, you remember, truth hasn't left. I've already seen it. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals transformation is not fragile. It is anchored in something permanent. What is truly revealed to you cannot be taken away from you. There will be moments where you feel confused, disconnected, and uncertain. But in those moments, don't focus on what went wrong. Remember what is true. Remember who you've become, what you've seen, and what you now understand. Because truth does not disappear. It only waits to be recognized again. And the moment you remember, you return. And that is how awareness stabilizes itself. Verse 14. And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people. Repented means changed perception, shifted viewpoint. The Lord God represents truth or higher awareness. Evil means misinterpreted intensity, what seemed harmful. Thought to do means perceived outcome, not actual intention. His people represent your inner system, your thoughts, emotions, and identity. This is not saying truth was wrong. It is showing the perception of the situation has changed. Repented. In its true sense, it means to change the way you see something, not regret, not mistake, but a shift in understanding. The evil. This is not actual evil. It represents what looked like distraction. Earlier, it seemed like everything would collapse. Everything would be lost. But now awareness sees that's not what this is. What just happened? Awareness returned, observed the distortion, reframed the situation, remembered truth, and now the entire perception changes. The key insight: nothing actually changed externally, only the understanding changed, and that changed everything. Relationship example. You thought this relationship is falling apart. Then you reflect and you realize, I misinterpreted things. Suddenly, fear disappears. Clarity returns. Nothing changed externally. Your perception changed. Career example. You thought, this isn't working. Then you step back and see, I'm actually progressing. Everything feels different. Religion example. You thought God is distant. Then awareness returns and you see nothing was missing and connection feels restored. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals what looks like distraction can simply be misinterpreted transformation. Sometimes nothing needs to change except the way you see it. You thought something was ending. You thought something was wrong. You thought something was being taken from you. But when awareness returned, you saw clearly. Nothing was lost. Nothing was destroyed. Nothing was against you. It was just misunderstood. And the moment you saw it correctly, everything softened. Everything aligned. Everything made sense because truth was always there, waiting for you to see it clearly again. And that is the power of awareness. Verse 15. And Moses turned and went down from the mount, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. The tablets were written on both their sides. On the one side and on the other were they written. Moses turned and went down. This is awareness returning from higher perception into everyday experience. Mount represents elevated consciousness or clarity. 2 tablets represent structured truth, balanced understanding. In his hand means now within your grasp, something you can live by. Written on both sides means complete, holistic, no gaps in understanding. Before, awareness went up. This is clarity or revelation. Illusion was exposed. Perception was corrected. Now, awareness comes back down. Went down from the mount. This is important. Awareness is not meant to stay abstract, distant, or only in moments of clarity. It must return to daily life, relationships, and decisions. This is integration. The tablets were in his hand. Before, truth was experienced. Truth was seen. Now, truth is held, meaning you understand it. You can apply it. It is accessible. It's no longer fleeting. Written on both sides. This is deep. It represents complete understanding, inner and outer, thought and action, awareness and behavior. Nothing is missing. There is no contradiction, no partial truth. The 2 tablets, they represent balance, awareness plus expression, truth plus application, understanding plus action. Not just knowing, but living it. Relationship example. You had a realization. I misinterpreted things. Now you return and communicate clearly, act differently, and respond with awareness. That's the tablets in your hand. Career example. You realized I let doubt take over. Now you stay consistent. You act with clarity. You trust the process. You are applying what you saw. Religion example. You realized truth is within. Now you interpret differently. You live with confidence. You are no longer dependent. Understanding becomes lived experience. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals true awareness is not just something you experience. It is something you bring back and live by. It is not enough to see truth on the mountain. You must carry it into your life. You've seen clearly. You've understood deeply. But now comes the real work. which is living it. Because awareness is not complete until it is expressed. And the truth you once experienced is now in your hands to guide your thoughts, your actions, and your life. And that is where transformation becomes real. Verse 16. And the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, graven upon the tablets. Tablets represent structure of truth, internalized understanding. Work of God means not human-made, not mental construction. Writing of God means direct truth, pure awareness. Graven upon the tablet means deeply established, not temporary. This verse is making a clear distinction between what the mind creates, golden calf, and what awareness reveals, tablets. Two sources are being compared. The golden calf, made by the mind, shaped from past beliefs, based on interpretation, temporary and unstable. The tablets, revealed from awareness, not created by thought, not based on assumptions, stable and unchanging. This is the contrast. The work of God. This means truth is not something you invent. You don't create it. You don't shape it. You don't adjust it. You recognize it. The writing of God. It means truth is direct, clear, not influenced by bias, and not dependent on emotion. It is what is. Graven upon the tablet. Graven equals engraved. This means it is deeply established, not temporary, not based on mood, not something that fades. It remains. What this verse is showing, after all the confusion, after the false belief, after the misinterpretation, there is still something within you, which is unchanged truth. Relationship example. Your thoughts may say, something is wrong. But deeper within, you know what is real. You can feel the difference. You can sense truth versus assumption. That deeper knowing is the writing of God. Career example. Your mind may say, this isn't working. But deeper, you know your progress, your direction, and your growth. You know that clarity is not created, it's recognized. Religion example. You may hear, you are not enough. But within, there is a knowing. Truth feels different. Clarity feels natural. Awareness feels stable. That is not learned, it is revealed. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals true understanding does not come from the mind. It comes from direct awareness. What is true does not need to be constructed. It only needs to be seen. There are things your mind will create: stories, interpretations, and assumptions. But beneath all of that, there is something that does not change. Something not shaped by fear, not influenced by doubt, not built from past experiences. That is truth. And when you touch it, you don't question it. You recognize it because it was never created. It was always there. And that is the writing of God within you. Verse 17. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said unto Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. Joshua represents developing awareness, perception in training. Heard the noise means external observation, sensing without full clarity. Noise of the people represents activity of the mind, thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Noise of war is misinterpretation, assuming conflict. Awareness, Moses is returning. But Joshua represents a lower or developing level of perception. Heard the noise. This is surface level perception. You notice something is happening. There is activity. There is movement. But you don't yet understand what it actually is. There is a noise of war. This is the misinterpretation. Joshua assumes this must be conflict. But in reality, it is something else entirely. Celebration around the golden calf. What this means internally. When you return to awareness, your first interpretation may still be off. You might think everything is falling apart. There's conflict here. Something is wrong. When in reality, it's just the activity of a false belief playing out. Relationship example. You sense a change in tone from the other person. Less communication. You immediately think something is wrong. We are drifting. But you haven't seen clearly yet. It's just perception without full awareness. Career example. You notice slow progress, quiet periods. You think this is failing, but you haven't fully assessed the situation. It's an assumption. Religion example. You feel less emotional intensity. You think I've lost connection, but you haven't seen clearly yet. It's a misinterpretation. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals not every perception is accurate, especially before full awareness returns. What you initially think is happening is not always what is actually happening. There is a stage between confusion and clarity where you can see something, but you don't yet understand it. And in that stage, the mind will try to label it, This is conflict. This is wrong. This is a problem. But awareness, when it fully arrives, will show you exactly what that is. And when it does, everything you thought may completely change. And that is the difference between perception and understanding. Verse 18. And Moses said, "It is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear." Moses said, this is higher awareness, true discernment, not victory and not defeat, not what the surface mind assumes. Noise of singing, this is expression, activity, engagement with a belief system. Joshua assumed this is war. But Moses clarifies, no, this is something else. Hearing versus knowing. Joshua heard surface perception. Moses knew deeper awareness. This is the difference between reacting versus understanding. Not victory and not defeat. The mind often interprets situations as success or failure, good or bad, right or wrong. But awareness says, that's not what this is. It's not conflict. It's misalignment being expressed. The sound of singing. This connects back to earlier verse. They were celebrating the golden calf. So this singing represents engagement with the false belief. They are invested in it. They are comfortable with it. They are expressing it fully. It's not war. It's participation in illusion. Relationship example. You think we are fighting. Something is wrong. But deeper awareness sees, no, we are just acting from misunderstanding. It's not conflict, it's misinterpretation being expressed. Career example. You think I'm failing, but awareness sees, no, you are just reacting to temporary conditions. It's not defeat, it's perception. Religion example. You think I've lost connection, but awareness sees, no, you are just engaging with a belief that isn't true. It's not loss, it's misalignment. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals what you think is conflict may simply be the expression of misunderstanding. Discernment is not just hearing what is happening. It is knowing what it actually means. Not everything is a battle, a loss, or a failure. Sometimes it is simply a belief being expressed, a pattern being lived out, an illusion playing itself out. And when you see it clearly, you don't react, you understand. And in that understanding, everything becomes easier to shift because you are no longer fighting it, you are seeing it. And that is the power of true awareness. Verse 19. And it came to pass, As soon as he came nigh unto the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger waxed hot, and he cast the tablet out of his hands and broke them beneath the mount. Came near the camp means awareness entering direct experience. Saw the calf means clear recognition of the false belief. Dancing means full participation, expression of illusion. Anger wax hot is intense clarity, strong rejection of distortion. Cast the tablet is interruption of integration. Broke them means breakdown of structured understanding. Before, awareness returned. Understanding was formed, the tablets. Now, awareness sees exactly what is happening. He saw the calf and the dancing. This is direct perception. No assumptions, no interpretations, just clear seeing. The belief is visible. The behavior is obvious. The illusion is undeniable. Nothing is hidden anymore. Next, the dancing. This shows full engagement. They are not questioning it. They are enjoying it, expressing it, and living it out. The illusion is fully active. His anger waxed hot. This is not emotional anger. It is intense clarity. The kind of realization where you say, this is completely false. How did this even happen? It's that moment of shock, clarity, and sudden awareness. He cast the tablets and broke them. This is very deep. The tablets represent structured understanding you were about to live by. But now, something interrupts that integration. Why? Because you cannot apply truth while still fully engaged in illusion. The system must be seen and addressed first. What this means internally. Sometimes you have clarity. You understand truth. But then you see how far your behavior is from that truth. And it creates a moment of internal disruption. Not because truth is wrong, but because the gap is revealed. Relationship example. You realize I misunderstood everything, but then you see how you acted, how you responded, what you created, and you feel, wow, I really let that take over. That intensity is this moment. Career example. You realize I was doubting myself unnecessarily, but then you see missed opportunities, inconsistent actions, and you feel I disrupted my own progress. That's the breaking of the tablets. Religion example. You realize truth was always within, but then you see how you depended externally. You see how fear shaped your thinking, and you feel, I moved away from what I knew. That's the moment of confrontation. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals, before truth can be fully lived, illusion must be clearly seen and addressed. Awareness doesn't ignore illusion, it brings it fully into the light. There will be a moment when you see clearly what you believed, how you acted, and what you created. And it may feel intense, like something is breaking. But that breaking is not loss. It is the space being cleared for something real to be established. Because truth cannot fully settle where illusion is still active. And once it is seen, everything begins to realign. And that is the beginning of deeper transformation. Exodus 32, verse 20. And he took the calf which they had made and burned it in the fire and ground it into powder and stood it upon the water and made the children of Israel drink of it. Took the calf means directly confronting the false belief. Burned it in the fire means intense clarity exposing it. Ground it to powder means breaking it into nothing, removing its structure. Strewed it upon the water means mixing it with awareness. Water here represents consciousness. Made them drink it means internalizing the truth about the illusion. This is a step-by-step process of transformation. He burned it. Fire equals clarity. This is where you see the belief clearly, where it came from, how it's formed, why it's not true. It can no longer hide. Ground it to powder. The belief is not just challenged, it is broken apart completely. No solid structure remains. No convincing story remains. It loses all form. Strewed it upon the water. Water equals awareness or consciousness. Now, the illusion is mixed into awareness, meaning you now see it for what it is. It becomes obvious. It becomes transparent. It can no longer deceive you. Made them drink it. This is the deepest part. You don't just see the illusion, you internalize the understanding of it. You fully realize this was never true, and that realization becomes part of you. Relationship example. You believed they don't care anymore. Now you see where that thought came from, how you misinterpreted things. You break it down completely, and now you can't believe it the same way again. Career example. You believed this isn't working. Now you see your progress, your growth, your impatience. The belief dissolves, and now you operate differently. Religion example. You believed God is distant. Now you see it was perception. It was interpretation. That belief cannot hold anymore. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals true transformation happens when a false belief is not just seen, but fully understood and dismantled. When you truly see something for what it is, you can never be deceived by it the same way again. There are beliefs that once felt solid, real, and unquestionable. But when awareness fully sees them, they are exposed, broken down and dissolved. And what remains is clarity. Because once illusion is reduced to nothing, truth stands effortlessly. And that is what real freedom feels like. Verse 21. And Moses said unto Aaron, why did these people unto thee that thou hast brought so great a sin upon them? Moses said, this is awareness speaking. Aaron represents the mind or interpretation. What did these people unto thee means? What caused you to respond this way? Brought so great a sin means created a major distortion or misalignment. After the illusion is exposed and the belief is dismantled, awareness now reflects. How did this even happen? Next line, what did these people unto thee? This is a deep question. It's like asking, why did you, the mind, react this way? What triggered it? What made you interpret things like this? Why did you create that belief? This is self-reflection. Awareness versus mind. This shows a separation. Moses' awareness observes clearly. Aaron, the mind, reacts and interprets. Awareness now examines the mind. So great a sin. Sin equals missing the mark, distortion, and misalignment with truth. This wasn't a small misunderstanding. It became a fully formed false reality, a belief, behavior, and identity expression, all built from misinterpretation. Relationship example. You step back and ask, why did I assume they didn't care? You begin to see past experiences, fear of loss, and insecurity. And now you understand what triggered the reaction. Career example. You ask, why did I think this wasn't working? You realize impatience, comparison, and fear of failure. You see the root of the thought. Religion example. You ask, why did I feel disconnected? You see reliance on feelings, old conditioning, and fear-based beliefs. The pattern becomes clear. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals awareness doesn't just remove illusion. It seeks to understand how it was created. True awareness doesn't stop at clarity. It also brings understanding. It's not enough to say that wasn't true. There is power in asking, why did I believe it? Because in that question, you uncover your patterns, your triggers, your conditioning. And once you see that clearly, you don't just remove one illusion, you prevent many more. Because now you understand the process. And when you understand the process, you stop repeating it. And that is where transformation becomes wisdom. Verse 22. And Aaron said, let not the anger of my Lord wax hot. Thou knowest the people that they are set on mischief. Aaron said, this is the mind responding. Let not the anger wax hot. avoid the intensity of being fully seen. Thou knowest the people means pointing to external and internal factors. Set on mischief. This is blaming tendencies, impulses, or circumstances. After awareness, ask, how did this happen? The mind responds, well, it wasn't really me. Let not the anger wax hot. The mind wants to reduce the intensity, wants to avoid full exposure. It says, let's not make this a big deal. It tries to soften the confrontation. Thou knowest the people. Now comes deflection. Instead of saying, I misinterpreted, the mind says, you know how things are. That's just how people behave. It shifts the focus away from itself. They are set on mischief. This is blame. The mind says, it's because of them. It's because of the situation. Instead of taking responsibility, it points outward. Relationship example. Instead of saying, I assumed incorrectly, you say, well, they were acting different. Anyone would think that. You justify the reaction. Career example. Instead of saying, I doubted myself, you say, the market is bad. The situation made it hard. You shift responsibility. Religion example. Instead of saying, I moved into fear, you say, that's how I was taught. That's what I've always heard. You justify the belief. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals the mind protects itself by shifting blame instead of taking responsibility. Growth begins the moment you stop explaining and start seeing clearly. When awareness confronts the mind will try to explain, justify, and deflect. It will say, it wasn't really me. It made sense at the time. Anyone would have done this. But real transformation begins when you pause and say, no, let me see this clearly. Because clarity does not need defense. And the moment you stop defending, you start understanding. And that is where true change begins. Verse 23. For they said unto me, make us gods which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we know not what has become of him. They said unto me, this is externalizing the source. It wasn't me. Make us gods. The demand for certainty, control, and substitutes. We know not what has become of Moses. This is uncertainty, the absence of felt clarity. Moses represents awareness, inner guidance. Egypt represents past identity, old conditioning. The mind is now saying, I had a reason for what I did, and the reason is uncertainty. Next line, we know not what has become of Moses. This is the core trigger. When clarity feels absent, the mind becomes uncomfortable. It does not like waiting, not knowing, or uncertainty, so it reacts. What the mind is saying, I didn't just create this randomly. There was a reason, and the reason is I didn't feel clear anymore. The subtle trap. This is where many people get stuck because the mind's explanation sounds reasonable. Things felt different. I didn't know what was happening. It made sense at the time, and so the behavior feels justified. Relationship example. You say, they were acting differently. I didn't know what was going on. So you assumed, reacted, and created a story, and you justify it. Career example. You say, progress slowed down. I didn't know where this was going, so you doubted, lost consistency, considered quitting, and you justify it. Religion example. You say, I didn't feel connected anymore. I didn't understand what was happening, so you moved into fear. You relied externally. You created rigid beliefs and you justify it. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals the mind will always find a reason to justify a false belief, especially when it is reacting to uncertainty. Not every reason is truth. Sometimes it is just the mind trying to feel safe. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. And in that discomfort, the mind will say, do something, create something, make sense of this. And whatever it creates, it will later defend, I had a reason. But awareness sees deeper. The issue was never the situation, it was the discomfort with not knowing. And when you learn to sit in that space, you stop creating false answers. And that is where clarity begins. Verse 24. And I said unto them, whosoever had any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it to me. Then I cast it into the fire, and there came out this calf. I said unto them, the mind initiating the process. Gold represents stored beliefs, past experiences, what was valued. Cast it into the fire means processing through thought, emotion, and intensity. There came out this calf, claiming the belief formed on its own. Now the mind says, I didn't really create this, it just happened. The shift in the story. Earlier it said, they made me do it. There was a reason. Now it says, I just put things together and this came out. It removes intentional responsibility. I cast it into the fire. Fire equals processing. The mind is saying, I just thought about it. I just reacted as if that process was neutral. But in reality, it was active interpretation. There came out this calf. The mind presents the belief as unavoidable, automatic, and natural. Like saying, of course, this is the conclusion. But awareness knows it was constructed step by step. Relationship example. You say, I just started feeling like something was wrong, as if it happened on its own. But in reality, you noticed something. You interpreted it, and you built a story. The calf didn't just appear. Career example. You say, I just lost motivation, as if it happened naturally. But in reality, you had thoughts. You entertained doubt. You reinforced it. It was a process. Religion example. You say, I just started feeling disconnected, as if it came from nowhere. But in reality, you shifted your focus. You engaged certain thoughts. You reinforced certain beliefs. It didn't just happen. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals the mind will present its creations as automatic to avoid responsibility for forming them. Awareness shows you the process. The mind tells you it just happened. There are thoughts you will say, I just felt this way. It just happened. This is just how it is. But if you slow down, you will see there was a moment you noticed, a moment you interpreted, a moment you believed, and that's where it's formed. Because nothing appears fully formed, it is built. And once you see that, you take your power back, because what was built can be rebuilt. And that is where true awareness begins. Verse 25. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies. Moses saw means full awareness, nothing hidden anymore. Naked means exposed, uncovered, vulnerable, without truth covering. Aaron made them naked means the mind caused the exposure through false belief. Shame is misalignment revealed. Inner discomfort when illusion is seen. Enemies represent external reflections, situations, and consequences. After the belief was created, after the illusion was lived out, after the mind justified it, awareness now sees the result. Moses saw. This is total clarity, no denial, no justification, just seeing what is. They were naked. Naked doesn't mean physical, it means uncovered. No truth covering, no clarity protecting, no awareness guiding. You are exposed to the effects of the belief. Aaron made them naked. This is key. The mind didn't just create the belief, it removed your alignment. It took away clarity. It replaced truth. It left you unprotected. And now you feel the consequences. Unto their shame. This is not condemnation. It is realization. The feeling of this isn't aligned. This doesn't feel right. I see what I did. It's awareness recognizing misalignment. Among their enemies. Enemies equals consequences or external reflections. When you act from illusion, your environment reflects it. tension in relationships, stagnation in career, confusion in understanding, not because something is attacking you, but because you are exposed. Relationship example. You acted from the belief they don't care. Now there's distance, there's tension and misunderstanding, and you feel something is off. That's the exposure. Career example. You acted from doubt. This isn't working. Now there's inconsistency and missed opportunities, and you feel I'm not where I could be. That's the exposure. Religion example. You acted from fear, I'm disconnected. Now there's confusion, dependence, and lack of clarity, and you feel something doesn't feel right. That's the exposure. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals illusion doesn't just mislead you, it leaves you exposed to its consequences. What you believe shapes how you stand, and false beliefs leave you uncovered. There are moments when you feel exposed, uncomfortable, and misaligned. And instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what belief am I standing in right now? Because when truth is not covering you, illusion will expose you, not to shame you, but to show you clearly this is not aligned. And the moment you see that, you can return to truth. And when you return, you are no longer exposed. You are established again. And that is the purpose of awareness. Verse 26. Then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? Let him come unto me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together unto him. Moses stood means awareness becomes firm and grounded. Gate of the camp is the point of decision, entry between two states. Who is on the Lord's side means alignment with truth versus illusion. Come unto me means return to awareness. Sons of Levi represent discernment, those who choose alignment. This is no longer observation or reflection. This is decision. Stood in the gate of the camp. The gate represents a threshold between illusion and truth, reaction and awareness, where you can't stay in between anymore. Who is on the Lord's side? This is not about division, it's about alignment. It's the moment where you ask, what am I choosing now? Is it truth or the belief I created? You must decide. Let him come unto me. This is an invitation. It's saying return to awareness. Leave the illusion. Leave the reaction. Leave the misinterpretation and come back to clarity. The sons of Levi gathered. Levi represents discernment and alignment. These are the parts of you that recognize truth, choose clarity, and are willing to let go of illusion. Not everything within you responds, but what is aligned does. Relationship example. You see clearly I created a false story. Now comes the moment. Will I continue acting from it or return to clarity? And you choose honest communication and grounded response. That's choosing the Lord's side. Career example. You see, I let doubt take over. Now the decision, do I stay in that or return to clarity? And you choose consistency, focus, and action. That's alignment. Religion example. You see, I moved into fear. Now the decision, do I stay in that belief or return to truth? And you choose inner awareness, clarity, and understanding. That's choosing truth. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals awareness eventually brings you to a point where you must consciously choose alignment. Clarity is not enough. You must choose it. There comes a moment after everything is seen, after everything is understood, where you can no longer stay in between. You must choose truth or illusion. And that choice is not made once. It is made in your thoughts, in your actions, and in your responses every day. And when you choose awareness, everything begins to realign. Because truth is not forced, it is chosen. And that is where transformation becomes real. Verse 27. And he said unto them, thus said the Lord God of Israel, put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. What does Hebrews 4:12 say? It says the word of the Lord is like a double-edged sword. So sword here represents discernment or clarity. By his side means always active, ready, and present. Gate to gate means every area of the mind, every entry point. Camp is your inner world, your thoughts, emotions, and patterns. Brother, companion, and neighbor, these are familiar patterns, close thoughts, habitual beliefs. Slay means cut off, separate from, no longer identify with. After the decision, who is on the side of truth? Now comes the action. Remove what is not aligned. Put every man his sword. This means activate discernment. You are no longer passive or observing only. You are actively choosing. Go from gate to gate. This is thorough. You examine every thought, every belief, and every reaction. Nothing is ignored. Brother, companion, neighbor. This is very important. These are not enemies. They are familiar patterns, thoughts you've lived with, beliefs that feel normal, and reactions that feel natural. That's why they are called brother, companion, and neighbor. They are close to you. Slay every man. This is not physical. It is separation. Man represents identity, the self-concept, conscious awareness. You stop identifying with the thought. You stop believing the pattern. You stop acting from it. You cut it off, even if it feels familiar, comfortable, and justified, because it is not aligned with truth. Relationship example. You notice patterns like overthinking, assuming, and reacting emotionally. They feel natural, like this is just me. But now you use discernment. You say, this thought is not true. This reaction is not aligned, and you stop acting from it. Career example. You notice patterns like doubt, procrastination, and comparison. They feel familiar, but now you cut them off. You choose clarity, consistency, and focus. Religion example. You notice patterns like fear-based thinking, dependence, and limiting beliefs. They feel normal, but now you separate from them. You choose awareness, truth, and understanding. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals transformation requires the willingness to let go of even the most familiar patterns. Not everything that feels like you is truly you. There are thoughts, beliefs, and patterns that feel close. Like this is just how I think. This is just who I am. But awareness reveals not everything familiar is true. And in that moment, you must be willing to separate, release, and let go, even if it feels uncomfortable, because what is not aligned cannot go with you. And when you do that, you create space for truth to remain. And that is the discipline of awareness. Verse 28. And the children of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. Children of Levi represent discernment in action, aligned awareness. Did according to the word means obedience to truth, acting on clarity. There fell means collapse, removal, dissolution. 3,000 men represents large number, many patterns, not literal 3,000. Previously, awareness called for separation. Discernment was activated. Now it is applied. They did according to the word. This is key. Not just hearing truth, not just understanding truth, but acting on it. This is choosing differently, responding differently, and thinking differently. This is where transformation becomes real. There fell. This means patterns collapse, not by force, but because they are no longer supported. Their belief is not fed. The reaction is not followed. The thought is not entertained, so it falls. 3,000 men. This is symbolic. It represents many patterns at once. When you apply real awareness, it doesn't remove just one thing. It removes layers. It removes thoughts, reactions, assumptions, and habits all connected to that illusion. So when it says about 3,000 fell, it's not about counting people. It's revealing a massive internal shift happened. Many patterns collapsed. Many beliefs dissolved. A full transition took place. Not partial, significant and widespread within the inner system. Relationship example. You don't just stop one behavior. Suddenly, overthinking reduces. Emotional reactions calm. Communication improves. Multiple patterns fall at once. Career. You don't just fix one thing. Suddenly, confidence increases. Consistency improves. Clarity sharpens. A whole system shifts. In spirituality, you don't just change one belief. Suddenly, fear disappears. Understanding deepens. Peace stabilizes. Your entire perception transforms. The deeper revelation. 3,000 is not a number of loss. It is a symbol of large-scale transformation. When awareness is applied fully, transformation doesn't happen in parts. It happens in waves. Sometimes you think change is small. But when you truly see and truly choose, the shift is not minor. It is massive. Because one moment of clear awareness can undo layers all at once. And that is the power of true transformation. Verse 29. For Moses has said, consecrate yourselves today to the Lord, even every man upon his son and upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. Consecrate yourselves means set apart, dedicate, align intentionally. Today is present moment, immediate choice. To the Lord means to truth, to awareness, to higher alignment. Upon his son and his brother means every part of you, your actions, patterns, and familiar tendencies. Bestow a blessing is the result of alignment, which is clarity, stability, and peace. After discernment was applied, after patterns fell and illusion was removed, something must now replace it. Consecrate yourselves. This means intentionally align yourself, not passively, but consciously. You decide how you think, how you respond, and what you believe based on truth. Today, this is powerful. Not someday, not gradually, now. Alignment is always a present choice. upon his son and his brother. This connects to the previous verse where you separated from patterns. Now you establish alignment in your actions, which are sons, and your familiar patterns, brothers, every level of your being, that it may bestow a blessing. This is not reward in a religious sense. It is the natural result of alignment. When you align with truth, you experience clarity, peace, stability, and confidence. That is the blessing. Relationship example. You've removed assumptions and emotional reactions. Now, you consecrate yourself to honest communication, grounded responses, and clarity. The result: peace, stability, and deeper connection. Career example. You've removed doubt and inconsistency. Now, you consecrate yourself to focus, discipline, and clarity. The result: progress, confidence, and growth. Religion example. You've removed fear and dependence. Now you consecrate yourself to awareness, truth, and understanding. The result: peace, clarity, and inner stability. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals transformation is not complete until you establish yourself in truth. It is not enough to remove what is false. You must establish what is true. There is a moment where, after everything is cleared, where space is created. And in that space, you must choose what will now guide you. Because if you don't, the old patterns will return. But if you consciously align, truth becomes your foundation. And what you once struggled with no longer has a place, because you have chosen something higher. And that is what it means to be consecrated. Verse 30. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses said unto the people, Ye have seen a great sin, and now I will go up unto the Lord. Perhaps I shall make an atonement for your sin. On the morrow means a new phase, next level of awareness. Moses said means awareness speaking again. Saying a great sin is deep misalignment, not condemnation, but clarity. Go up unto the Lord means return to higher awareness. Atonement is reconciliation, bringing things back into alignment. Even after the shift, awareness doesn't ignore what happened. On the morrow, this means after the immediate correction comes deeper reflection. Transformation happens in layers. Ye have seen a great sin. Again, sin equals missing the mark or misalignment. And this was not small. It affected thoughts, behavior, and identity. It was a full system distortion. I will go up unto the Lord. Awareness says, let me go deeper, not to condemn, not to punish, but to fully understand and restore alignment. Make an atonement. Atonement equals bringing everything back into harmony. This is healing the gap, restoring clarity, and realigning completely. Not just removing illusion, but fully integrating truth. Relationship example. You realize, I misinterpreted and reacted wrongly. You don't just stop. You reflect deeper. Why did this happen? What needs to be strengthened? You restore the connection. Career example. You realize, I let doubt affect my actions. You don't just correct behavior, you go deeper. You strengthen discipline. You reinforce clarity. You realign fully. Religion example. You realize, I moved into fear. You don't just reject the fear. You deepen your understanding. You anchor truth. You stabilize awareness. You restore alignment. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals transformation is not just correction. It is full reconciliation and integration. Awareness doesn't stop at seeing. It continues until alignment is complete. There are moments when you see clearly, I was misaligned. And that's powerful. But awareness doesn't stop there. It says, let me go deeper. Let me restore fully. Because true transformation is not just about stopping something. It is about becoming aligned completely. And when that happens, there is no trace of confusion left. Only clarity, only understanding, only truth. And that is the completion of the process. Verse 31. And Moses returned unto the Lord and said, Oh, these people have sinned a great sin and have made themselves gods of gold. Moses returned. This is awareness going back into deeper reflection. Unto the Lord means aligning again with truth. Sinned a great sin, a significant misalignment clearly seen. Made themselves gods of gold means created false beliefs from valued ideas. This is different from earlier. Before, the mind justified. The mind deflected. Now, awareness speaks plainly. Moses returned unto the Lord. This shows continued alignment. Awareness doesn't drift again or get distracted. It stays connected to truth. These people have sinned a great sin. No softening, no excuses, just accurate recognition. Not maybe, not kind of, but this is what happened. Made themselves gods of gold. This brings clarity to the root. The issue wasn't just behavior. It was what they created internally. Beliefs, assumptions, and interpretations built from what they valued, which is gold. Relationship example. You now say, I created a false story in my mind. Not they made me fail. Not it just happened. You take full clarity. Career example. You now say, I let doubt shape my actions. Not the situation caused it. You see it clearly. Religion example. You now say, I replace truth with fear-based beliefs. Not that's just how it is. You recognize the pattern. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals true awareness is honest, without blame, without defense, without distortion. Clarity begins when you can see without explaining. There is power in simply saying, this is what happened. No excuses, no justifications, no blame, just truth. Because in that moment, you are no longer controlled by it. You are no longer defending it. You are no longer repeating it. You are seeing it. And the moment you truly see, you are free to change. And that is where real transformation deepens. Verse 32. Yet now, if thou wilt forgive their sin, and if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of thy book, which thou hast written. Forgive their sin means release the misalignment, restore harmony. If not, is recognition of consequence if misalignment remains. Blot me out means remove identity, dissolve the sense of self tied to the system. Book represents record of identity, consciousness, self-definition. Which thou hast written means true identity established by awareness. If thou wilt forgive their sin, this is not begging. It is seeking full restoration. Awareness desires complete alignment. No distortion. No fragmentation. No remaining illusion. If not, this shows seriousness. Awareness recognizes misalignment cannot remain. There must be either restoration or complete separation. Blot me out. This is powerful. It's not literal removal. It is complete disidentification. Awareness is saying, if this system remains in distortion, I will not identify with it. Out of thy book. The book represents identity, who you believe yourself to be, how you define yourself, the consciousness you live from. You are the book of life. It's not a literal book. It is you. Your true self. That's why it says, whoever was not found written in the Lamb's book of life was cast into the lake of fire. It's talking about you. Whatever is not aligned with your true self, it's refined. You are the book of life. What this means internally. This is the moment where you say, I will not be the version of myself that lives in this distortion. I won't identify with the fear. I won't identify with the doubt. I won't identify with the illusion, even if it feels familiar. Relationship example. You say, I will not be the version of me that overthinks and assumes. Even if it feels natural, even if it feels familiar, you release that identity. Career example, you say, I will not be the version of me that doubts and holds back. Even if it feels safe, even if it feels normal, you let it go. Religion example, you say, I will not be the version of me that lives in fear. Even if that's what you were taught, even if that's what you've known, you release it. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals true transformation requires letting go of the identity that was built around the illusion. You are not just changing what you think. You are changing who you identify as. There is a moment when you see clearly this version of me is not aligned. And in that moment, you don't just change behavior. You release the identity. You say, this is not who I am. And that decision creates space for something true to emerge. Because what you no longer identify with no longer defines you. And what you choose instead becomes your new foundation. And that is the deepest level of transformation. Verse 33. And the Lord said unto Moses, whosoever had sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. The Lord said, this is truth or higher awareness responding. Whosoever, individual aspect, not the whole system. Sinned against me is misalignment with truth. Blot out of my book is removal from identity, no longer sustained. This corrects something important. Moses said, blot me out, as if everything is one. But truth says, no, it is specific. Whosoever, this is precise. Not everything is removed, only what is misaligned. Not your entire identity, not your whole system, just the parts that are not true. Had sinned against me. Again, sin equals misalignment or distortion. This means whatever is not aligned with truth cannot remain. Him will I blot out. This is removal, not punishment, but dissolution. The belief fades. The pattern disappears. The false identity dissolves because it has no foundation in truth. Out of my book. What does Jesus say? The kingdom of heaven is within you, or the kingdom of God is within you. What did Paul say? You are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwells in you. He also said, Christ in you, the hope of glory. Christ is the divine principle in you. It's not saying Jesus in you. That's why Paul didn't say Jesus in you. He said Christ in you. Because Christ is the divine principle Jesus lived from. Jesus is the vessel. Christ is the content. Jesus revealed Christ. Jesus revealed the divine principle. That's why Paul said Christ in you. So the book is your true identity. Only what is aligned, real, and true remains part of it. Everything else falls away. This is the same pattern you see in Revelation. Whosoever was not found written in the book of life. This is not about people being destroyed. It is about what is not aligned being removed from you. Not a person, but anything within you that is false, misaligned, or rooted in illusion is cast into the lake of fire. Lake or water represents purification. Fire represents transformation or refinement. Fire does not destroy gold, it refines it. Water purifies. When you combine water and fire, lake of fire, cleansing and purification, cleansing and transformation, cleansing and refinement. That's the lake of fire. It's not a torture place. The fire is not torture, it is refinement. Truth does not destroy you, it refines you. It burns away illusion, distortion, and false identity until only what is real, what is aligned, and what is true remains. The source of life is not a torturer. God is not a torturer. As 1 John says, God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If the source is light, then everything it does reveals, not destroys. We come from that source. We are expressions of it. That's why we are called gods. The source is God, capital G, uppercase G. We come from the source, so we are called gods, lowercase g. So the idea that the source would eternally torture its own expression does not align with its nature. The fire does not quench because truth continues to refine. Not endlessly punish, but continuously reveal until there is nothing left to remove, until only your true self remains. As Matthew records, if you know how to give good gifts, how much more will your Father? And James says, every good and perfect gift is from above, from the Father of lights. No shadow, no variation, only consistency of truth. The fire is not against you, it is for you. Nothing true is ever removed. Only what is false fades. Only what is misaligned dissolves. And what remains was always you. Jesus was misunderstood about the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. I have a teaching on that on my channel. Jesus didn't say there's a literal place people. He didn't say that. That's why it's a parable. Paul never said there's a place you go to after that. He never said. What did he say? To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Immediately, you go back to the source because you came from the source. No one goes to hell. Hell is not a place you go to. It is a state of awareness. Jesus said what? The kingdom of heaven is within you. So hell is also within you. It is the consequence of misalignment. It's not a place you go to. No one goes to hell. Everyone goes back to the source. Career example. Not everything you've built is lost. Only the part that doubts, hesitates, and limits, that part is removed. Religion example. Not your entire understanding is wrong. Only the part that operates in fear, depends externally, misinterpret, that part falls away. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals transformation does not remove you. It removes what is not truly you. You are not being erased. Only what is not true about you is. You don't lose yourself. You don't start over. You don't become nothing. Instead, everything that is not aligned gently falls away. And what remains is what was always real. Because truth does not need to be created. It only needs everything else to be removed. And that is the restoration of identity. Verse 34. Therefore now go, lead the people unto the place of which I have spoken unto thee. Behold, mine angel shall go before thee. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit, I will visit their sin upon them. Go lead the people means continue the journey. Move forward consciously. The place I have spoken means alignment, purpose, state of truth. Angel shall go before is inner guidance, awareness directing you. Visit their sin upon them. This is not God doing something. It's the consequence of misalignment becoming visible. It's the law of principle. You reap what you sow. It's not God doing something. It's law. That's why Paul said, well, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. It's a law. It's not God doing something. So visit their sin upon them. It's the consequences of misalignment becoming visible. After illusion is exposed, after patterns removed, and identity clarified, life continues. Go lead the people. This is important. You don't stay in reflection, correction, or analysis. You move forward. But now, with awareness, unto the place I have spoken. This represents your aligned state, which is clarity, truth, and understanding. The direction has not changed. My angel shall go before thee. Angel equals guidance, inner knowing, and awareness leading. Not you are not moving blindly. You are guided. You are aware. You are aligned. I will visit their sin upon them. This is not punishment. It means consequences remain visible. Even after awareness, past actions and past patterns may still have effects, but now you see them clearly. And because you see them, you don't repeat them. Relationship example, you've corrected your perception, but there may still be tension. Things may need time to stabilize. Those are the visited effects. But now you handle them with awareness. Career example, you've regained clarity, but some opportunities may have been missed. Progress may take time to rebuild. Those are the effects. But now you move forward correctly. Religion example, you've shifted into truth, but old beliefs may still surface. Old patterns may still appear. Those are residual effects, but now you recognize them immediately. The deeper revelation. This verse reveals awareness doesn't erase consequences, but it changes how you move forward. Growth is not about going back. It is about moving forward differently. You don't stay in the past. You don't stay in the mistake. You don't stay in the correction. You move forward. And now, you are not the same person who created the illusion. You are aware. You are guided. You are aligned. And even if the effects of the past appear, they no longer define you, because now you see clearly. And when you see clearly, you move differently. And that is what transforms the journey. Verse 35, and the Lord plagued the people because they made the calf which Aaron made. The Lord God. This is truth, or higher awareness, or ultimate reality. Plague is disturbance, disruption, internal conflict. The people represent your inner system, your thoughts, emotions, and patterns. Because they made the calf, the result of the false belief they created. Aaron made, the mind formed and shaped it. This is not about truth attacking you. It is about misalignment producing its own effects. The Lord plagued the people. In symbolic reading, this means when you move out of alignment with truth, your experience becomes disturbed. It's not saying God did something to them, no. Not because something is punishing you, but because you are operating from distortion. Because they made the calf, this is the cause. Not something external, but what was created internally. The belief, the interpretation, and the assumption that became your reality. Relationship example. You created the belief they don't care. Now there is tension, distance, and confusion. That is the plague. Not punishment, but the result of the belief. Career example. You created the belief this isn't working. Now there's inconsistency, stagnation, and missed opportunities. That's the effect. Religion example. You created the belief God is distant. Now there is fear, confusion, and dependence. That's the result. This verse reveals truth does not harm you. Misalignment creates disturbance within you. What you experience is not punishment. It is the natural result of what you believe. Nothing was done to you. It was produced through you. The belief, the interpretation, and the illusion shaped the experience. And once you see that, you stop looking outward for the cause and you return inward, where change actually begins. Because when the belief changes, the experience changes. And that is the true ending of the chapter. From illusion to exposure, to separation, to alignment, to understanding. And this brings us to the end of the chapter. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next teaching. Have a good night.